Let there be football. Welcome in the Mood of Change. I'm your host, Jonathan Bam Rivers. On my MTC call sheet, and I'll call it the MTC menu since we're reacting to Thanksgiving Day, and I pray everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I'm going to give you my full reaction to all three NFL games that took place on Thursday. They were phenomenal. Even the last one, it was more phenomenal because it was just that surprising to me. All right? And I'm going to give you my Bam's Brick Picks during the Chain Gang Chat. I'm going to go to Sunday's games in the NFL and tell you exactly what I think will happen in some of the biggest games of the weekend. And in my nonsense narrative, I want to talk specifically about two rookie quarterbacks and for people who think confidence is a bad thing. And yes, I think it'll get cultural because I think a lot of the conversation that I see on social media has to do with culture, and I think it matters. There's no reason to run from it. Let's go ahead and hit it head on. And last but not least, you better pay attention to the 7 seed, whether it's in the AFC or the NFC, because they can make some noise in the NFL playoffs this year. Having said all that, you know what time it is. Let's hit them with the opening toss. Week to week in the NFL, I'm amazed and never cease to be amazed at the exact same time for different reasons. When I watched these games on Thursday, while I was with my family enjoying all the food and just relaxing and kicking back and working, which isn't really work, watching football, I always want to ask myself, does this mean anything big picture, or is it just a micro type situation? Is it just a game, or are there bigger implications? So we're starting with the Packers and the Lions. And as I bring up this graphic, this was a very well-played, clean game by both teams. Penalties weren't the issue for either teams. Turnover was not the issue for either teams. I think the Detroit Lions put themselves in position to win this football game. I think what I take away from this is Green Bay is just better. And if you want to think back to week 1, when Green Bay was at home and played Detroit and thoroughly spanked the Lions, you saw, I think, more of a ceiling game for the Packers then, but people really didn't know what the Lions were. But when I look at this game on Thursday, the Packers were what the Packers needed to be. They needed Jordan Love to be exceptional when he needed to be exceptional. I think Jordan Love not turning the ball over is exceptional. I think Jordan Love not turning the ball over is more impactful and more poignant than Jordan Love throwing 4 touchdowns. I think if the Packers win this game and Jordan Love throws 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, it's just as big of a game. Statistically, I know it's better. But Detroit is just in a situation, they make me look back at 2 years ago when they were in the NFC Championship game. And that was a game where I think Dan Campbell's sole reason for being who he is kind of bit him in the butt. And I told you guys this when it comes to the Lions. They're a very well-run organization that flipped 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't think they're going anywhere. I just think in the NFL, when teams transition and they get better, they also get worse. You look at college football all the time, the better your assistant coaches are, they get jobs. I'm going to continue to harp on this with Detroit because it matters. I think Dan Campbell now having to make sure that he can modify the game plan during the game, and that now because he's taking on play calling duties, it matters, and I think it puts them in a less than advantageous situation. Amon-Ra St. Brown going down also hurt. But what you saw Green Bay do was Green Bay took advantage of their 4th down situation, specifically at the end of this game. Green Bay took advantage of Jared Goff not being a dual threat quarterback in terms of being able to move the pocket physically, and it mattered. Bringing in a guy like Micah Parsons matters. Having a guy like Adrian Cooper on the defensive side of the football matters. Green Bay was good, and so was Detroit. Green Bay is just a better team. I think they're younger. I think they're more explosive on offense and on defense, and I think Matt LaFleur put himself in position from a play calling standpoint to not let Detroit get any bead on what they were doing. Green Bay is one of the best teams in terms of motioning on the offense to make plays, and that's exactly what they do. As you see Micah Parsons enjoying his winning turkey along with his teammates enjoying love. The Packers are a team I told you, I think a week or 2 ago, not to be concerned about. Even though you've seen them play close games, even though you've seen them with quote-unquote inexplicable losses, you don't need to worry about the Packers because they're young and they'll make mistakes, but they're also young and they're good. And when I look at Detroit, they're on the outside looking in on the playoffs. I don't know the status of Amon-Ra St. Brown moving forward, but I do know the status of their secondary, and I know the status of where they are. This year is not a referendum on the program or the organization. I just think this is a year for the Lions where they've had to turn over too much in less than a 12-month span, and it may just keep them out of the playoffs. All right, the next game I want to talk about was the second game on the slate, and I don't know how many viewers watched this game. People anticipated over 50 million, and that's all well and good. I was definitely glued to the television. And I'll just say this. It's very, very telling for an NFL team. Because when I train athletes, I tell them all the time, when you're working on a ladder drill, it always tells on you if you don't pick your knees up. And I think that's why I love the NFL. Because if you're undisciplined and if you're inconsistent, it'll tell on you. There's no hiding from inconsistency and being undisciplined. And that's not something I'd ever thought I'd say for an Andy Reid coach team in the NFL when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Think about this game. I'm going to get to Dallas shortly because Dallas is a big story here. The Chiefs committed 10 penalties for over 115 yards, and I don't even think that was the biggest issue. Penalties were the biggest issue, but it's the type of penalties. They gave Dallas 5 first downs via penalty, whereas Dallas didn't give Kansas City any first downs. That's the equivalent to me in basketball of you putting the other team at the free throw line. That's the equivalent of baseball where you're walking people, walking the bases loaded, and then they're having a big inning. They were giving Dallas free plays, and Dallas was so good at taking advantage of it. Broughton Schottenheimer and his offensive staff was so good and not trying to beat you cute. This defense was so good and making sure that in the second and third quarters they held Kansas City down, but it wasn't because Kansas City couldn't make plays. It's because every time Kansas City made a play, it was brought back because of a penalty. If you look at the 3 or 4 consecutive series where they had to punt, they were all due to penalties. But that's because they're not a team executing at a high level right now. And if you're Dallas, with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott playing at a high level with a brand new defense, so to speak, in terms of injuries and new players. I told this to my director, my producer, before we started shooting the show. I said Dallas caught Kansas City at the right time and Kansas City caught Dallas at the wrong time. One team is moving upward in that trajectory and another team is being stagnant. Now, if you're asking me big picture predictions, I think Dallas, I said, would be better than a lot of people thought. They will be fighting for the 7th seed, in my opinion, in the playoffs. If you ask me today, do they make the playoffs? I'll say no, but Dallas is in a good position, even if they don't re-sign George Pickens, because you don't want to turn into the Cincinnati Bengals. I will save that for another show, I promise. And in Kansas City, I've been saying it all year. They'll be a 6th or a 7th seed and make the playoffs. It's still on the table. Am I confident about it like I was before? Not really, but I'm not changing. I just think Dallas did a great job of doing that. Going to George Pickens on Jalen Watson, on slant routes. You knew it was coming, but you couldn't stop it. That wasn't being cute. That was being precise, and that was being concise, and it was being smart, because if they can't stop it, don't stop doing it. All right, let me go to the last game here, and this is the surprise game for me, of course, of these games. It may be the surprise game of the weekend, and all the games haven't even happened yet. Cincinnati goes on the road and kills Baltimore, and I'm showing you guys the stats, but if you look at the turnovers, that's the entire story. I'm not leaving this game thinking any differently about the Bengals, but I am leaving this game thinking differently about the Baltimore Ravens, and let me explain. The Bengals are still who they are. Joe Burrow is back. They're going to be able to score 30-plus points whenever they want to, seemingly. The only difference was their defense forced 5 turnovers. Their defense forced 5 turnovers, and I think they came into this game with 11 total forced this year. Half of their turnovers that they have forced the entire season happened in this game. I still don't think the Bengals are a playoff team. I still think the Bengals have a philosophical flaw. I still think the Bengals have a phenomenal quarterback who will be just that. And I honestly think that the Bengals, Joe Burrow getting hurt is helping Zach Taylor. Because if Joe Burrow wouldn't hurt, people would say, hey, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs, which they haven't been the last 2 seasons. And I think this year it'll be 3 in a row. And Zach Taylor still has his job. I don't call for coaches being fired, guys. Y'all know that. I'm just simply speaking facts. I think beating Kansas City in the AFC Championship game back in 21, I think it was, and Joe Burrow consistently staying hurt are giving the Bengals organization the thoughts of maybe Zach Taylor can still get the job done. Maybe he can, even though he's not. And if you're Baltimore, it's been a weird season. You start the season losing a big lead to the Buffalo Bills, and then Lamar Jackson gets hurt. Your defense is terrible, but now your defense has been playing better, and I don't blame the defense yesterday. 5 turnovers, nobody's going to win a game like that. So if you're Baltimore, you're now 6-6. The Chiefs are now 6-6. The Bills are on the verge of being subpar team. The Lions are not in the playoffs. The NFL is exactly what it's supposed to be, full of parity, but I continue to say it just seems weird. All right, when we come back from the break, I'll give you my brick picks this Sunday in the NFL. Back when we'll move the chains right after this. And we'll go back in the Move the Chains. Before we get to my brick picks during the Chain Gang Chatter, I want to take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for hosting Move the Chains. Secondly, I want to thank you, the fans, for watching. I really appreciate the support. Third, the best production crew in the business. Shout out to the individuals that make this show go. And last but not least, you've seen the QR code at the bottom of the screen. And because you've seen it, you need to go ahead and scan it because it'll show you the protection plan. If you want to better yourself financially, mentally, spiritually, and physically, click on that QR code, look at the protection plan, and go ahead and make a change for your life. Having said all of that, you know what time it is. It's time for the Chain Gang Chatter. All right, picking games for Sunday's NFL slate. Let's go ahead and get it done now. I don't want to waste any time. Houston and Indianapolis. My director said this may be one of the best games of the weekend. I cannot disagree with him. First, I'll just go ahead and tell you, Indianapolis, I think, wins this football game. And I think a lot of people are looking at Indianapolis as possible frauds. I will say that their schedule is going to be horrendous moving forward. You've got the Texans twice, the Jaguars twice. I'm not putting the Jaguars in the same position as I am the Texans, even though they're ahead of the Texans in the division. I just think Houston's a better team. I'll just say that now. But Jacksonville does have a winning record. They are a playoff team currently. Then they've got 2 games against NFC West contenders as well. Indianapolis, I don't think will give Houston what Houston wants, and that's the ability to get after Daniel Jones, because I think this will be a 30-35 rushing attempt game by Jonathan Taylor, maybe more. And I think by Indianapolis, you may see them rush the ball 40 times. I think that's what you'll need because when against Kansas City, Indianapolis was bottled up in the run game. And Houston offensively still leaves a lot to be desired, but their defense makes up for it so well. Now, this is a game in Indianapolis. I think crowd noise will play a part in this because it will allow their offense to be on time. It will allow their offense to be in a position to where they can still be balanced. And ladies and gentlemen, time of possession matters in the NFL. I know a lot of people think that it's a stat that sometimes can be overused or it's not as important because of the big play capabilities. It matters, especially when you're as great as Indianapolis in terms of goal to goal and scoring touchdowns. They're one of the best teams in the NFL when it comes to red zone percentage. Houston defense is phenomenal. Indianapolis is not going to, in my estimation, come back home after getting to Kansas City and losing a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. This game is very close. I think Indianapolis wins it, but I believe in both of these football teams. All right, the next game that I want to talk about here are the Cardinals at the Bucs. I don't want to spend too much time on this game. The Cardinals are bad, but the problem is they're better with their backup quarterback in terms of their offense flowing. And I think Kyler Murray will just be the next iteration of a possibility of Daniel Jones or Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold, because I don't think he'll be a Cardinal any longer. For Tampa Bay, the surprise to me is that they're a 2.5-point favorite, but I'm not. The injuries, now they're getting Bucky Irving back, I think, for Sunday's game. Chris Godwin played last week as well. Listen, the Patriots, the Bills, and the Rams, 2 of those 3 games also on the road, was a tough slate. Tampa has some good wins this year. They have to get healthy. If you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you have to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat at home down the stretch. That is your goal, to be healthy and win the NFC South and get to the playoffs. I think this is the first sign in doing that. And even though Baker Mayfield got hurt against the Rams as well, I think the Bucs have enough firepower to get past the Cardinals. But the Cardinals do play teams tough, so don't just throw this by the wayside. But the Buccaneers win this football game. Buffalo and Pittsburgh is the last game I want to talk about. Buffalo has been a turnover machine, specifically Josh Allen, and I don't understand why. I feel like Buffalo's going back to hero ball when they can clearly run the ball well, and I think defensively they haven't been able to stop the run, which hurts. Pittsburgh does 2 things well. They get after the quarterback and they cause turnovers. You pair that together, I think Pittsburgh wins this football game. And then a team who really hasn't had the identity of running the football in Pittsburgh, I think they'd be ridiculously stupid not to run the ball against the Buffalo Bills because Buffalo can't stop the run between the tackles, and it's going to hurt them. Pittsburgh wins this ball game at home in my estimation. When we come back from the break, confidence is a bad thing, especially for young quarterbacks who haven't proven anything. It's a dumb narrative. As a matter of fact, it's a nonsense narrative, and I'll tell you why. Back with my favorite segment of the show right after this. We'll go back in to Move the Chains, and I'm not going to delay this any longer because I love this opportunity. It's time for my favorite segment of the show. It's time for my nonsense narrative. Run it. So the next man up mentality does mean something because you can't quit. I told you where I was going here. Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart. I'm going to tell you it's cultural, man. I mean, they're a huge group of people, for whatever reason, that want Shedeur Sanders to fail. And they want him to fail because they say he hasn't proven anything. I'm going to look at Shedeur Sanders, I'm going to look at Jackson Dart, because they both play the same type way. And what I mean by that is they both play with a fire in their belly, and they both play with a large amount of confidence. And at what point is that a bad thing? Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders were both good college quarterbacks. One was a first-round pick, one was a fifth-round pick. I think everybody knows that both could have been first-round picks. But I think to say that a quarterback should not play with confidence is ridiculous. I don't care what they've accomplished or what they haven't, because in order to accomplish something, you have to play with confidence. You shouldn't cast away confidence because it has great reward. So why do people assume that young quarterbacks have to be timid and have to lack confidence until they've earned something? It doesn't make sense. And I don't think people understand how success works, especially in the NFL. When you're a rookie quarterback, there will be mistakes. In the Shedeur's case, I told everybody this. For those people who can't look at this objectively, if you have nothing to say but good things about Shedeur, you're wrong. If you have nothing to say but bad things about Shedeur, you're wrong. And I wanted to use these two quarterbacks as a comparison because of where they were drafted and culturally. Again, I'm going to keep saying this because I know it to be true. There are people who want Shedeur Sanders to fail because of his background, and there are people who want Jackson Dart to succeed because of his background. Let both of them grow and let both of them be confident, be who they are in their own skin, because I think both of these young guys have opportunities to be very, very good under center in the NFL. When we come back from the break, it'll be the final segment of the show, the 7th seed. You better watch out for them. Back with the final segment of Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. Now it's time for the final segment of the show. It's time for the final drive. If you're an AFC team, and either the Houston Texans, the Baltimore Ravens, or the Kansas City Chiefs become the 7th seed, which undoubtedly one of them will, please be on your P's and Q's. I tell you that a 7 seed, specifically the Chiefs, because of their pedigree and because of the Texans' defense, they can cause problems for anybody in the AFC playoffs. So if you're the 2 seed, please don't get too comfortable because you have a game at home, because the 7 seed in the AFC can wreck your life. Hey, don't forget, you can not only catch Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, but you can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's at Move_the_Change. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. We are here for it, and hit that notification bell. Hey, another banger for the best production crew in the business. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. Always remember, build every day of your life brick by brick. And don't forget to scan that QR code to look at the protection plan to change your life. And as always, right here on Move the Chains. Until next time, God bless.